Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is part 5. It's the last part of my cycle tour of the UK coast from 2014. If you stick around till the end for my triumphant return to London, or should I say my return to London. When I last left you, I was in Bude. Now if I wanted to continue following the coast down towards Tintagel, after speaking to a couple of guys in the cycle shop in Bude, and they were basically saying they're really bad hills going down that way. Even the road riders around here, the road racers, don't really tackle them. So they suggested going inland a bit. So during the night, looked at the maps and decided to give Tintagel a miss. I've actually visited there a few times previously, so it wasn't something I was desperate to see again. So I took their advice and went inland a bit. Not so much on the cycle roads, but on some A roads, until I got to a turn off which took me on to the Bodmin Moors. Now this was a bit of a strange place. A lot of it was fenced off for the military and there's nobody around. I'm sacking down through the trees, quite dark. I think I must have been in cycling for about 2 hours, and I saw two cyclists coming towards me. As you do on these trips, you sort of stop and have a chat, and surprisingly, the guy he was just setting off from Land's End, and he was doing up to John O'Groats. His name was Neil as well, and his friend was travelling with him for a couple of days, and he was doing this for charity. He was doing a charity cycle. I mean, what's the odds of that? Middle of nowhere, I meet somebody who's got the same name as me. These things happen, at least they do to me anyway. After chatting, exchanging Facebook addresses and things like that, I wished him well and got back on the bike and started pedalling again. Now after I came out of the moors, I picked up the Camel Trail. Now this is a really good cycle track which goes all the way to Padstow, which was going to be my next stop. And this was another strange trail. It took through all sorts of different types of vegetation, landscapes. At one point it went through like a stone quarry of some sort, and I could have sworn I'd seen it as a backdrop for a Doctor Who show, maybe one of the earlier ones. It could have definitely been used as a backdrop for Alien Land, I think. Eventually I got to Padstow, or should I call it Rick Steinland, which seems to be, that's his main base. He seems to have a pub, a couple of restaurants, a shop, half a dozen other things. Nowhere to stop it actually in Padstow itself, no campsites, B&Bs, but just outside of Padstow I found another campsite, so I was camped up for the night. Now I've been lucky in some respects on this journey that the weather's been with me most of the time, apart from the occasional rain up in Scotland. But the year is moving on, and the weather's starting to change a bit, so it's getting a bit colder and a bit wetter. Luckily, morning it was fine, so I got back on the bike. Now my next stop was going to be Newquay, a place I've never been to before. I'm cycling along, and what happens is another bolt goes on the front pannier. Now when I bought these panniers, I was told they were robust, and the panniers themselves are, but it seems that the bolts are not. And it broke right on the edge of the nut, so there was no way I could get the bolt out. Luckily, help came with the cable ties. Luckily I brought them along, and I managed to make the bodge to stop it from falling off as I carried on cycling. Just as I was coming into Newquay, I stopped by the side of the road to tighten up the cable ties again, and a taxi pulled up in front of me. Asked me if I was okay. That was the first. I explained the issue with it, and he pointed me to an indoor market where a cycle mechanic worked. So off I chopped. I found the guy, I think it's called Peter, and we looked at it, and he said, "Oh, get the drill out." So we had to drill out the bolt in order to put a new bolt in. And while I was talking to him, I was asking about where the good places to stay, if there was any good campsites or cheap B&Bs. And he suggested I go and stay at one of his friends' places. and the place he suggested was the Escape Surf Hotel, which was run by one of his friends. So he gave me directions, and I turned up there, and luckily there was a room. So I unpacked, locked up the bike, and thought I'd go out for a little wander. As I say, I'd never been to Newquay before. I think we were about halfway through the day, 3 o'clock-ish, something like that. So I made my way down to the coast. Surfers were all out. I found my first surf shack shop. I bought a t-shirt. And I wandered around looking for somewhere to eat and maybe go for a drink. And I found myself in a bar overlooking the bay, and it was full of surf dudes, you know, with weird surfing names. And I got chatting to a few, one drink led to another drink. Had some really nice food there. Left about 9 o'clock and sort of staggered-ish back to the hotel, and found that there was a stag do had booked in for the night. So it was going to be quite a noisy night. I joined in with a few more drinks there. Woke up with a little bit of a headache, and one of the disappointments for me was that none of my phone, my camera or my laptop had been charged. I forgot to put them on charge, so I didn't get any decent shots in Newquay. And as I was cycling out of Newquay, I was a bit disappointed about that. It's one of the areas I really wanted to get some shots of. But now my things were charged up, I didn't want to turn around and cycle back just to take some photos, because the weather was changing a little bit, and my next port of call was going to be St Ives, and I was cycling on towards St Ives. The heavens opened and it threw it down. Only for about 10 minutes, then it cleared up, but the sky was getting darker everywhere. So I eventually made it to St Ives, I've no idea where I was going to stay, and I cycled right down to the harbour area. I was looking for somewhere to eat, something to drink, a cup of tea and something to eat, and I found the Sloop Inn, which was right on the bay. And I was chatting to the landlady and asking about, you know, the likelihood of rooms, and they had some rooms for hire, rent for overnights and things like that. But unfortunately, their rooms were all booked up, apart from a room they had on the outside. Now this was going to cost me, I think the most expensive one I had was £50 for the night. But while I'd been eating my dinner, I'd checked the weather forecast, and it was talking about really heavy rains, winds of 60 to 70 miles an hour, and I was dubious of camping anywhere with my tent in them sort of winds. So I bought the bullet and rented the room. Now the room turned out to be a one-bedroom apartment, really, on a par with a luxury apartment in London. And the landlady let me take the bike in. So I had a nice bed, and there was a kitchenette and a shower room and a lounge with a TV. So I was set for the night. I'd only just got into the room when it started throwing it down outside. I mean, when I looked outside, it was teeming down, and the wind was getting up ferocious. And I was, for the first time for a long time, I actually had a TV to watch, and I was watching the news and the weather forecast for the rest of that area down to Cornwall. It didn't look very good. It looked like it was going to be raining and windy for quite a few weeks. But I was glad I was in that nice apartment for the night. Nice and cosy. In the morning, sunshine. For about 10 minutes. And then it became a bit overcast again. Now, have you ever been to St Ives? You go down one hill to get to the bottom and you're in St Ives, and to get out you have to go up a steep hill to get out. So that's me struggling up these steep slopes out of St Ives to continue following the coasts. I'm not that far away from my goal. So I've cycled through half a dozen nice little villages, spotted some old tin mines on the side of the coast, and eventually I got to Land's End. Now, what a big difference between Land's End and John O'Groats. John O'Groats, a sign, go and take your photo with it, that's it. Land's End, commercialised, really, really commercialised. I mean, there's a visitor centre there. You can't take your photo under the sign because there's a photographer there who takes it for you and charges you. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed with how commercial it was. Well, I bought the bullet, paid for the photo to be taken, asked him to take some photos with my camera as well, and he agreed. So I sold my camera, and then I was going to have to wait for the other photos to come in the post. I was going to stay in the same area, but as I say, it was a bit commercialised. There wasn't any campsites nearby, so I decided to follow the route which a lot of people follow when they start off, which is when they get to Penzance, they cycle to Land's End and then set off on their Land's End to John O'Groats cycles. So I was doing it in reverse. So I cycled down through some little windy roads, really steep road, which I actually got off the bike after my previous problems with the brakes and the narrowness of the road and the traffic which was moving on it. I've decided I think I'm back to walk down this one because it was really steep and it was bendy at the bottom. And I got to the bottom, I thought, oh, I'm in Penzance. Actually I wasn't. I was about 10 miles away. I can't remember the name of the place, which is surprising. I must have made a note of it on Facebook, but I haven't been able to find it. Now, when I was going, finally got to Penzance, the weather had changed again. Overcast, raining, stopped raining. Then it would rain again. I'd checked for campsites and they were a bit further inland. I checked for hostels. I thought, oh, there's a youth hostel here. I'll go for the hostel. And while I was trying to find the hostel, I came across a backpackers hostel, which I fine by me. A hostel's a hostel. So I booked in for the night. Shared room, one other person in there, 2 single beds, TV room, kitchen, all the utilities you normally get in a hostel. So after I'd unpacked a bit, had a quick shower, I was a bit hungry, went to look for somewhere to eat. Now I'm walking around Penzance, Indian house, curry house, Chinese, different restaurants, etc. I think after about half an hour, weather was changing, it was starting to rain again, and I spotted a Wetherspoons. So I went into the Wetherspoons and had a meal in there instead. Always fine food, cheap, a couple of pints. While I was there, I was looking at the weather forecast again. I was also thinking about my finances. I definitely spent too much on my trip. And my finances dwindled fairly quickly. I suppose if I had just camped everywhere and not gone out for drinks quite so often and meals for so often, the money would have lasted a bit longer. But that's just the way I am. Enjoy it while you can. I mean, it was like a holiday, a long holiday, with no thought of what was going to be coming ahead. And sometimes that's my mentality. Still is today. Well, when I go up in the morning, it was throwing it down. Hailstone, really heavy. So I packed up my bike, packed up the bags up, put it back together. By the time I finished that, it stopped raining. So I cycled off to the front of Penzance to cycle down the promenade, if you like. And I was cycling towards Penzance train station. It was quite strange because I got to the train station and it was sunny, but when I looked back behind me at the other end of the promenade, it was raining. Now my idea was to just get an indication of what sort of cost and it would be for a train back to London. So I went in and had a check and was told that today's were going to be the last trains running all to London because there was going to be lots of work over the next 2 days. So the trains were going to be replaced by buses. And buses didn't have any space to take bikes. I was umming and ahhing what to do. Again, check the weather. Heavy rain. Next 7 days, 10 days, heavy winds, heavy rain. Come out of the train station, went and got a cup of tea and a cake. I was sat in the cafe, watching the rain come closer and closer to me. Thinking about my finances, thinking about the weather, thinking about my options for getting a train. By the time I finished my tea, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to cycle the rest of the way around the coast. I was going to jump on the train and go back to London. So back into the station, buy the ticket. Half an hour later, the train's in. Strangely, I had to put the bike at one end of the train and take all the bags to the middle of the train, because I couldn't leave all the bags with the bike, and I couldn't have the bike near the seating. That's just the way it was. I'm feeling slightly depressed with myself. Settled in for my train journey back to London. At least it wasn't a 12-hour journey like one I'd done from Thurso when I went back to Yorkshire. 5 hours later, pitch up Paddington Station in London. Gets the bike out, puts all the panniers on and back everything up on my bike and wheels it out the station. I'm back in London. The first thing I noticed was how unfriendly everybody was. Nobody seemed to be smiling at anybody else. Everybody's got their heads in their phones, walking fast to get somewhere. So I leave Paddington Station and I'm cycling through the parks. Cyclists coming the other way. No acknowledgement whatsoever. Now, on my trip, every time I'd seen a cyclist, we'd either waved or smiled at each other or said hello, even stopped and talked. But back in Hyde Park, I'm cycling there, no acknowledgement from any of the other cyclists. Yeah, this is London for you. An hour and a half later, with a stop off at the off licence, I get back to my flat and my triumphant return. Nobody there. I just turned up at home, back in the flat, had a quick shower and decided to get drunk. Now I've a feeling of euphoria, depression, all combined together. On the train coming back, guess what happened? The sun came out. Oh, that really put a downer on me. And I regretted the decision. But I had to make it. I had to get home. I mean, over the next few days, my decision proved to be the right one, really, because the weather was terrible for about 3 weeks, all down the south coast. Heavy rains and heavy winds. But I regretted not finishing the rest of the coast. if I could have gone all the way along to Portsmouth and down to Brighton and all the way around to Dover and then back up into London that way, I would have felt my achievement would have been bigger. I don't know what you feel about that. I mean, my cycle tour, I was away for 118 days. And I think I calculated, I don't know how many miles, 4,000 miles, something like that. I mean, I got to see some great things. It was a great adventure. But I was depressed for a few days after getting back to London. I didn't like London anymore. And I wasn't sure what to do about it. Anyway, that's the end of my UK cycle tour from 2014. If you haven't watched the other chapters, the other parts of the chapter 5, please do so, that you get a full idea of where I went and what I did. Really in depth. You can check out my Neil Harper, the Polite Cyclist Facebook page from 2014. There's loads of stunning photos on there. I haven't quite figured out how to put some of the photos into these videos to show you how glorious it was. I think yes, I'm going to finish this vlog at this point. I'm 51 years old. I've finished my adventure. I'm back in London, but I'm not sure what to do next. If you come back for my next video, then you'll find out what I'm doing next. I'd love to hear some comments. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.